What's going on, good people? Welcome back to Center You Podcast, y'all. This is episode 2. Listen, I just want to say I am so grateful. I am so grateful. I have so much gratitude right now. God is so good to me. And I really just appreciate this space that I've created right here for myself. And I'm just such in a space of where I've been saying for the longest, like, vulnerability is my superpower. Like, or I knew that at some point in my life, vulnerability was my superpower. I just didn't know at what capacity. Like, I knew that I've shared things with people. I knew that I was open about different experience I've been through, or any lesson that God has taught me, or anything that I've learned throughout, oh, excuse me, that was nasty, 37 years in my life of living. I knew that I would always share certain, stories of myself. But I'm really tapping into another side of actually being vulnerable and sharing my life and sharing my experience just based off of one conversation. And sometimes we don't always understand, or sometimes we don't always know that our situation and us being who we are as people, in my case, vulnerability being my superpower, how it can impact someone else's life, how it can change someone else's life, and how you can be just a good asset and a positive enforcement into someone's life. So with that being said, y'all, I think my last episode I left off on, I think I was talking about my journey. Obviously, it was vulnerability, but talking about my journey of moving to LA and driving across the country. So we're just gonna fast forward a little bit until when I first found my own place. Now, anyone who lives in LA knows that sometimes it can be very difficult to find a spot in LA. And at the time, I was living with some friends, and I had asked them before that. Now, my cousin Nelson Ellis, he's right here. As you guys know, he went to Juilliard in New York. He did True Blood. He did the James Brown movie. I think it's Get Up, Get On Up. I'm sorry, Get On Up. He also did Elementary with Lucy Liu. So like, I was staying with him. Well, I'm sorry, I was staying at his place, his apartment complex, down. Did my mic move? Down in the valley. And something happened with that. I think his business partner stopped paying the rent, something like that. And I had to leave. And my living situation went down here. I was sleeping in my car, still working at a job in the valley, but I was literally sleeping in my car because I still had the key fob to the apartment complex. So I would just park my car on the lower level of the parking structure, and then go to the bathroom because I still had the fob, take a shower. Wash up, and then go to work. Like, you would have never known that I was sleeping in my car. You would have never known any of that, because I've always believed that you should never look like what you've been through. And just because you've been through something, it doesn't mean you have to look like that. And so no one ever knew that I was homeless. No one ever knew it. My family didn't even know that. Now, if I told my parents that at the time, the kind of parents that I have, they wouldn't have never even allowed that to even be. But I understood that that was part of my journey. It was part of what God wanted me to experience. And so went from sleeping in my car to sleeping in a trailer home, right? I had met someone out and about, and I told him my situation, and I told him what I was going through. And it was just through conversation. I don't never share what I'm going through just so someone can be like, oh, let me help, kind of thing. I just always share what I'm going through because it's just who I am. And so I was sharing what I was going through. So he let me sleep in this trailer home. The trailer home didn't have no hot, no water. I was sleeping on a hard bed. And yeah, it was what it was. And so when my cousin Nelson, when he passed away, um, someone who I was dating with at the time had reached out to their friend and to have their friend like kind of console me. And the two friends, they did, and they actually told me that I can stay on their couch. I said, okay, y'all, well, I only need 3 months. 3 months to stay on your couch. 3 months, that's all I need. And I stayed on the couch. And one particular day, I got home from work, and I was parked in front of their apartment complex, and I was just boo-hoo crying, tears. I was praying. I was like, Lord, please let me find a place. Lord, please. I can't keep living like this. And mind you, I have been living like that probably for a good 6 to 7 months. So from sleeping in my car to the trailer home to my friend's place. So I've been doing it for like months at a time. And I think at that time I was just tired. Like I was just tired, and I was like literally pouring out to God and pouring out to him and crying out to him and telling him that I need him in this particular moment. And I literally felt God's arms hold me just like this and tell me that it was going to be okay. I've never experienced God in that way ever. I was just, and I started crying harder and harder and harder, and then I finally went back into their place, and I think I went to sleep, and the next day, someone that I knew had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, there's a tenant moving out of the second floor. Are you still looking for a place to stay?" And I'm like, "Yes." So then he linked me with the landlord of the apartment complex, and then just via text. And all three of us were texting, and the landlord was like, "Well, hey, do you want to check out the place?" And I was like, "Yes." So he sent me the address. I came over to check out the spot, and literally, as soon as I walked in, I knew I was supposed to say yes to it. But the crazy part about it is that I didn't even have enough money to even put down a deposit. I didn't have enough money for any of that. I think I only just had enough money for, I don't even know how much I had in my account at that particular moment. I don't even remember, but I know the deposit was like $1,200, I think. But let me tell you how good God is, because I didn't even have the money, because I don't even think I even got paid that week. So I literally walked into a situation. Now that I'm thinking about it, I walked into a situation not even knowing what the outcome was going to be, just literally hopping out on faith. And because I cried out to God the day before, I didn't even, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm just having a moment, and I'm crying because I need God to like show up for me in a supernatural way, and which he did. But I'm still walking into this apartment saying yes to something that I didn't even have all the money for. So I was like, okay, like what is happening right now in this moment? Like literally I'm walking in and I'm like, this is it. So when I moved in, before I moved in, the landlord was like, oh, okay, well, you don't have to put down a deposit. I get paid the $600. And then the other week when I get paid $600. He said yes. And I was like, and in my mind, at the time, I didn't think that God was moving and shaking even in that space. So I ended up moving in, and when I moved in, I literally only had just clothes. This apartment was empty. I didn't have the stuff that I have in here now. It was nothing in here. I literally moved in with just a bag of clothes, and I dropped to my knees and I said, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. It only took me to cry out to God but still move as if I had the money, knowing I didn't have the money to move in. Didn't know any of that. And so that moment, amongst other moments, let me know that all you need is a little bit of faith. All you need is a little bit of consistency. All you need is a little bit of keeping God in your life and allowing him to be him. Allow him to move spiritually in the earth realm. And even just talking about it's so crazy because as I'm talking about these stories, my brain is going back to these moments, and it's reminding me like I had a lot of faith. I had a lot of faith to leap out and drive across the country from Atlanta to LA. I had faith. And again, with that situation, not even knowing how the outcome was going to be. Something could have happened to me on the road. I could have got a flat tire. My car could have broken down. Then none of these things happened to me. So that's how I know that God protects me. That's how I know that I am destined for greatness, right? That doesn't mean that I don't go through things, because I do. It doesn't mean that God doesn't teach me things, because he does. It doesn't mean that he doesn't allow me to go through situations for me to come out on the other side a new man or a new person, or to have a better relationship with him, or to be spiritually mature. And so that happened 9 years ago, and I'm still living in the same place, same spot. And again, anybody who lives in LA knows how hard it is to find a good apartment that's inexpensive. So because of that alone, I'm super grateful that that's my story. Like, now looking back on every situation I've had, I'm glad that God allowed me to go through those situations, because it really has shaped me to be who I am today. And I still got more work to do. I'm not done growing. I'm not done growing spiritually, emotionally. I'm not growing as an individual, my character, who I am as a person. I'm going to always be open to growth, because I think that when we're in the space of growing, we're always being the best version of ourselves. Okay? And one thing that centers me is my faith. My faith in God, my faith in myself, my faith in what I can do. And just switching gears a little bit, still in the faith, conversation. But recently, before I started working a regular job again, 7 months. For 7 months, I wasn't working, and there was a situation happened in my last job where like racism was involved, and like just different stuff was involved that I wasn't tolerating, but was tolerating it. And I got fired from a job, and after I got fired from the job, I've never not had a job in LA. So for 7 months I wasn't working. And I didn't again, now talking about it and looking back, I didn't realize that God had me on a faith walk. That 7 months was a faith walk. And for 7 months in LA, I was not working. And during that time, like, I had friends helping me out, and people showing up for me, my parents and like friends and stuff like that. So I'm super grateful to my parents and to my friends who knows that situation and who's helped me out in that situation. So thank you. I appreciate you all. I love you all. Thank you so much for being a support system to me in that moment. but I was applying to jobs, looking for work, and I would have a couple of interviews. And this one particular job, God was like, no, like email them back and tell them that no, you are not going to take the job. So I'm like, and like God literally dropped it in my spirit, and I'm like, sir, what do you mean don't take this job? I got bills to pay. What, that doesn't even make any sense to just say just don't work. And the thing is with me, I'm not like that. Like I'm not the kind of person who would just be roaming through life and just not working, not taking care of themselves. That's not in me. So when God dropped it in my spirit, I was like, what? One day I remember I was crying. I was on the couch right here and I was crying because I could not understand. Shout out to my friend Richard Payton. He's from Chicago. I've been knowing him for a very, very, very long time. And he was like my spiritual partner in that particular a phase or journey in my life. And Richard, thank you for just like pouring into me in that time. But Richard has said to me, we was talking about God, we were talking about my journey, and Richard has said to me, he said two things. He said us talking about your journey, he said it helps me too. And now looking back, you just never know what people are going through. You never know what people are experiencing. So now I feel like I have a duty and I have a job to be expressive, to even open up more, to even be more vulnerable, to even talk about these things and share my life experience, because other people are going through the same thing. So that was one. And the second thing he told me was, at some point in your life, you're going to have to say yes to God. You either do it now or you do it later. And again, I understood, but I wasn't comprehending on why he was saying that to me until I started embarking on that journey, because I had said yes to God. Like I was crying. I was like, oh my God, like, because what we were talking about, it was speaking to my spirit, which it let me know that I'm supposed to say yes to God. But I didn't know what the yes was going to look like. I didn't know what the journey was going to look like. And so that's when, again, my faith stepped in again, and I said yes to God. And the journey, that 7 months was hard. Y'all, like it was very difficult and hard to manage, and it was hard to accept the fact that for 7 months I wasn't working because God had me on a faith walk. And I didn't understand why he had me on a faith walk. But when I tell you, after that walk was over, like I felt myself be closer to God. I was, and still am today, aware of energy, spirits, people, what energy people bring, what energy I bring, right? Checking myself. If I have a certain energy, and my energy, it can be something like, as small as, I don't know, somebody pissed me off or something or whatever, it can be that small, or God was just also teaching me in those moments that you don't have to say yes to everything. You do not have to say yes to everything. That even comes with a regular job. That even comes with my acting career, jobs, and opportunities. I don't have to say yes to everything, because I realize that God has a different path for me, and God sees me differently. And even in those 7 months, throughout those 7 months, I was crying so much because I didn't understand that God loved me that much. Like, God loves you that much. He does. And I felt honored. I was like, okay, like my journey and my testimony and my story is going to be totally different from anybody and everybody else. And I got to be okay with that. And I think now, today, even talking to you guys, I'm like sitting in that. Like God is allowing me to sit in what he has taught me based off of my journey and my life experiences, and just me having a little bit of faith in God, a little bit of faith in myself, for me to be able to understand my journey and understand why my life needs to be the way it is, and why it's shaped the way it is, and why God has shaped me to be this vulnerable Black man, because I'm strong enough to do it. I'm strong enough to understand it. I'm strong enough to see how my life needs to be planned out. And I don't always have all the answers. I don't. I swear that I don't. I really, really don't. I can honestly say that I don't have the answers to a lot of things that happen in my life. I don't. But what I will say is I thank God every day that I can wake up and say that I have enough faith in what He has called me to do. And I have enough faith and courage and strength and power to walk my journey, talk about my journey, so that it can either heal someone else, or my story can be relatable to someone else. And that way, that way people don't feel like they're doing this thing called life by themselves, because we all have a journey. We all have something that God wants us to do in this world, right? We all have a purpose in life. So I'm here to tell y'all, my people, that all we need is a little bit of faith. All we need is to make sure that we keep our faith game on point at all times, and make sure you surround yourself around people that can and will pour into you because they believe in you, right? Because they love you, and because they know that you are destined for greatness. When people know that you're destined for greatness, they will pour into you, right? Whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, whether it's spiritually, people will pour into you, right? So, and it's because my faith has gotten me this far. My relationship with God has gotten me this far, and I wouldn't want to know other way. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll always know when I'm dropping an episode on Center You Podcast.